Hello everyone, this is Ivan, Fujifilm ex-photographer. Today I have a guest on my left. Yeah, and I'm not going to introduce him because I'm going to let him introduce himself. Today is just an impromptu little talk show that we're going to talk about the new 23mm, but I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi everyone. Okay, it's weird, but I have to do my self-introduction. I'm Keith Wee. So I am a photography reviewer. So thank you, Ivan, for inviting me on here today. So without further ado, let's get started with our discussion on the 23 lenses.
So first, are you a fan of 23mm focal length or 35mm?
Okay, obviously. Okay, I've been with photography for really not as long as most of you, just a few short years, but the 35mm focal length has always been my favorite. In fact, I started with the Fujifilm X100. And from there, that's where I actually started using the 35mm focal length a lot, because it allows me to paint a story by including more of the background together with the subjects, and that's what I really look forward to in my photography.
But some like in my Instagram, I actually commented on something saying that the 35mm is actually a neither here nor there kind of focal length. It's not wide enough, not much compression, so it's like rather flat. Do you find it a bit difficult to shoot in this focal length?
Okay, you can quote me on this, which I think some will disagree. I feel that the 40mm is the neither here or there focal length instead of the 35. 35mm allows you to tell the story because you can include the background in it. It tells you what's happening at the same time. 50mm goes in much more, and because of that, you sometimes lose the essence of what's happening in the background of the subject. Some manufacturers try to make both sides of the cam happy. They did a 40, but to me 40 is really the one that's neither there or here, and I really prefer the 35 more.
To me, it's just a matter of one step forward and one step back. That's about it, right? So I think for myself, I didn't actually love the 35mm focal length until I came to Fujifilm. Before that, I felt that it's a neither here nor there, same thing. But ever since I started using the X100 series, I'm forced to use this focal length, and it has become my everyday camera, and I learned to take advantage of it, enjoy it, and learn to live with that. And it actually opened up a lot of new opportunities for me. I don't need to zoom so much. Just as much as I want to pull the shot in, it forces me to go forward or move back a little bit, because this focal length is actually very comfortable to the eye. It captures the environment. If I need to do a portrait, documented portrait, I think it is fine. It works beautifully, right? And let's talk a bit about the history of the 23mm lenses in Fujifilm, right? So we have here, which Keith had used the original X100 series, right? And I have not used this lens in my career. My career is a bit shorter than his in Fujifilm, you know. Yeah, I started with an S, not the original X100. How do you find this?
I started with the X100, which it's really one of the first, to me, like one of the first cameras that really spoke to me, not just for the aesthetic design.
But you love the autofocus, right?
The autofocus, to be honest, back then, 12 years ago, this was terrible. I mean, but the fact is, Fujifilm did take the feedback all back.
Of course, yes.
12 years later, we actually went through a few iterations. Like this is the 4th generation X100F, and of course I have Ivan's X100V over here. And of course, it's not just an improvement in autofocus performance. There are a whole list of improvements even down to how the optics are being redesigned. And even when I look at X mount itself, there are 3 generations that we have coming to 23mm here. I think it might be good for our professional here to maybe go a little bit in depth about his thoughts about 1st generation, the F2, and of course the star of today's discussion, the XF 23mm 1.4 WR. So Ivan, maybe you can share your thoughts about the 3 of them.
This was my first 23mm lens. I love it. Keith mentioned to me earlier he felt it's a bit slow, but to me it's workable. It's actually not as slow to me. I love the clutched autofocus manual, which is quite different to me. It's quite interesting actually, quite fast. If you can't focus, I just draw the ring down. I like the f1.4. I love the size. Aesthetically, I actually like it because it's just about right on an X Pro. It looks pretty nice. Optically, I like it because it's sharp at 1.4. When the 23 f2 came, personally, I'm not a fan of this lens because I prefer the 1.4. Period. Right? If I'm doing street, then this may come into the picture. But I don't really do street. If I do street, I'll just bring my X100 series, right? And this lens, like what I say, I'm not a fan. Are you a fan of this? Do you own this lens?
No, similar to Ivan. To me, this was just a lens that's, I guess it's there because it fulfills certain criteria like being faster than the original f1.4,
Yeah.
obviously being much smaller,
Weather seal.
and weather sealing.
Yeah. Price.
And of course, price.
Yeah.
So, yes, it has its advantages, but essentially what I saw coming to output, I just always felt that the original f1.4 definitely had it better than the f2. So to me, the f2 was more of a stopgap lens. That, maybe it's more for street photography.
I would think so. Because you probably put it at 5.6 and just shoot it because it's small, discreet, autofocus is fast. This brings me to the next lens. Okay, in terms of size comparison, for a start, it's the tallest, that's for sure. Of course, this is a lot shorter in terms of height, smaller, right? If you compare these two now, the 23mm f1.4 WR is taller, right? But in terms of size, it's actually a lot. The diameter is actually smaller. So in terms of volume, I think they're probably about the same to me, right? I've tried it for about 2 weeks. I feel it has the same character as the 18mm f1.4 and the 33mm f1.4. These are, we can call it the future-proof lens, the new generation lens, I would say so. I love the autofocus, but the most important thing about this, I love the image quality. I can see the difference between the old lens and the new one. I don't have the pixel peak, I can tell it's sharper optically. So that itself to me is important. If you are a commercial photographer and you use the X series, I think this is essential. Just like the 18 and 33, they are great lenses, they're sharp. Of course, what about your experience using this?
Okay, for me, it's from another perspective. Ivan is the professional here. I prefer to call myself a hobbyist. Nothing better to do with life, so I'll play with all these things. Okay, it's about compromises. Back then with this lens, which is really optically beautiful, the compromise was, of course, the lack of weather resistance, and of course, the slower AF speed. So what happened for me was, around X-Trans 2 era, I actually swapped out the f1.4 for the f2. Because to me, I really wanted something more compact,
right?
weather resistant, and of course, decent optical quality.
So you actually own it for a while?
Yeah.
Okay.
Short period. I never really fell in love with it, but it got what I needed to do done. But it was a compromise to me, optical quality wise. So my take about the 23 1.4 WR is, this is where finally, after so many years of waiting, right, I do not need to think about any more compromises.
What about the size?
Okay, size wise, for those people who are a bit OCD, the weight differences are about 70 grams, slightly heavier. This is 58mm filter diameter, 62.
Yeah.
To be honest, if you are a user who is particular about these minute differences, I think you are maybe overthinking things by quite a bit, because the improvements simply outweigh this by so much more. Okay, Ivan mentioned sharpness.
Yeah.
A simple thing I noticed was for the f1.4 back then, right, the corners were not really sharp until f2.8 or smaller aperture sizes. This one, even wide open, the sharpness is way more improved. Not even need to mention about center sharpness. Even wide open f1.4, center sharpness is all present.
Yes.
And not just for commercial purposes, even for my purposes, it fulfills all my needs. It's fast, it's silent, and most importantly, the optical quality is a big step ahead of the two options here. And that's why I think Ivan mentioned it's the future-proof lenses, the 18, 23 and 33 f1.4.
So, did you find it a bit big when you put it on your X Pro 3 initially, or you got used to it like myself?
There is a little phrase Ivan mentioned a few moments ago that I actually like quite a lot. He used this phrase, which is you somehow make do with it. So to me, it's the key idea. It's liking it or not. Of course, there will always be people who will be mindful of, hey, this lens is, let's say, 2 cm longer than the other alternatives.
This one.
Let's do a quick comparison. But if you look at it closely, right, I think we are over.
Yeah. You'll just get used to it. Actually, it's not much of a difference.
When you are in the practice of grabbing that shot, you are not going to be so mindful about all these things.
Yeah.
And this is a lens that I used for about a week until this point, and I can really look forward to the images I get from it because I know that optically it's there. So it's not a case where I take a shot and I have to worry, hey, did it be not as sharp as what I want it to be?
I can only think of one reason that the XF 23 1.4, the old version, will beat the WR. It's the aesthetic of it, I think. The look of it is a bit more balanced in terms of the size compared to this one. Of course, because it's a bit longer or taller, depends on what you're going to talk about. But in terms of feel, I think it's okay, it's comfortable. No difference to me.
This one I agree, but you have to remember also, X mount is not just about the X Pro 3, which both of us love. You also have the XT4. On the XT4, the balance for this is excellent.
Yes, definitely.
So it's no longer an issue for most of the users because we do realize that X Pro 3 users are a special kind of people.
Now that you mentioned, actually on X Pro 4, XT4,
X Pro 4.
You cut that.
Okay.
For XT4, I think it's a lot more balanced in terms of the look and aesthetic of it. Yeah, I'm sure it worked very well. Yeah. So, having said that, there are a couple of lenses here. So which is your favorite, Keith?
If you ask me, end of the day, right, if it is a camera I just want to really bring around for everyday moments, it will actually always be the X100 series. It's the perfect balance of image quality, size, even aesthetics, and the whole way the camera handles.
Talking about that, when I did on my blog post, I talked about the image quality close up between 5 of these lenses. I was actually surprised that the X100V scored second place for me in terms of sharpness. Of course, the winner is the 23mm f1.4 WR new lens, followed by this, the X100V, overtaking the 1.4. Because I don't know what they did, what magic powder they put in this lens, but there's an improvement in image quality compared to that. So somehow newer is better, unfortunately. Of course, some will say it has more character. Yes, I think they have more character. What's your take on this? Like the original X100 has the most character. Yeah.
Okay, something maybe a little bit, people may argue about it. Okay, some use the word character. To me, character is also a word that comes from flaws in the optical design. I think it's something all of us know. The X100 had this optical design which had issues when they wanted to shoot wide open, close up. You had a glowy effect. Of course, some people loved it, but they call it character.
Character.
Yes, character, but it's an optical flaw. True to the spirit of evolution, after 4 generations, Fujifilm improved the whole optical design. They redesigned the whole thing. And that's why you can see that there is a real life difference.
Yes.
For these two, of course, like we can see so far, sharpness, even corner sharpness.
Yes.
Even down to the way the bokeh render, right? Okay, I know bokeh is subjective, but it's personal. For me, it's the bokeh for this lens is something I can work with, because I feel that the way the fall off from focus to out of focus areas is smooth, and I like that little slight pop that the images from the XF23 WR can give me also.
Interesting, because I feel between the two, the bokeh for this renders better to me. So now the question is this: would I pick this or this now? If you love bokeh, I think this makes sense. But to me, I can't make a picture sharper. This is still a top choice. If I want to make the bokeh a bit softer, I can do it in post. I can't make a picture sharper with this lens, in that sense.
A discussion point we had just now was, of course, it does go back to the type of photography you want to do. If you are a professional who seeks to squeeze out every single possible bit of image potential from the system, the newer 23mm f1.4 WR will be the choice.
Yes.
Because it's literally a workhorse lens. It gets everything done in a package.
Yeah.
Maybe for hobbies or someone who has a certain preferences towards how the image renders, that's where the 1.4 first generation can come in. And for the ones like our girls, we try to not give them a system that's too heavy.
Yeah.
This may be the best choice for them.
Weather resistant too. Yeah, true. Fast, small,
Small,
lightweight.
light, fast, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they drop it, it doesn't hurt us so much because it's a very good.
It doesn't hurt us so much. It still does hurt. Yeah, it's still
it
painful.
does hurt, but it's at least not so painful.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know, like what we were discussing earlier, which is the best for you actually. We just want to share like the advantages and disadvantages of each lens. I guess they all have its purpose. Of course, for X100 series, the body plays a huge part too. But the X100V was a shocker to me that image quality is better than the 23mm. That's my take. And if you're like me, if you can't make up your mind, or if you ask me, what would I take? Which lens is my favorite? Let me shock you. It's the 45mm by the GFX, my favorite. It's been my everyday camera for the last 3 weeks, and I fit in the moment Cine Bloom, which I like it very much. On a serious note, I would still take the 23 1.4 for myself for work purposes because it's a workhorse of a lens. But if you like character, I would still think that this is still a worthy, the original 23mm f1.4. I love the clutch, I love the size. I think it's still a worthy consideration up to this point. But if you match it for future, I would not know how well it will render. What about you, Keith?
For me, it's for what I shoot on a daily basis, it will still be the 100V. It's an excellent setup, all in one. But if I will really have to choose between X-mount these 3 lenses, obviously this will be out. And I will go for this. Because this is the one where I don't have to think anymore about compromises.
True, true, true.
Fast, silent, all in one. Even the magnification for this is double than that of this. So this works even much better for close-up shots.
Yes, more versatile.
So it's, to me, an all-rounder. And of course, lastly, because I was told that we are not really allowed to speak about all these things.
What things?
Like the upcoming release.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
He can't have any idea because but the rumored XH2.
Okay, yes.
That may be rumored, emphasize, to have a 40 megapixel sensor.
Okay.
This is going to be the lens where it will really work perfectly with the next generation of Fujifilm cameras. And I think, like it or not, we do have to move along. Because if you are really into maximizing potential from your equipment, this is the way to go.
Of course, yeah. I think it's what I said, future-proof. If the camera do come true, according to Keith, I think this is definitely future-proof, right? So I guess there's a lens for everyone. I think the most important, I hope you enjoyed this little video. I'm glad that I brought Keith Wee along for this little chat. I think it's fun. We were just talking to Joel, who is filming us. He said, what's a strip? I said, we have no strip. This is one take, and that's all it is, all right? Just one take. We don't want to waste his time too. So I hope you enjoyed this little chit-chat of ours. All right, once again, thank you. Stay safe. Have a good day.